I never thought we'd end up here, yet this is where life has taken us. My wife and I have been together for 10 years, married for 8. We met back in college, two young, hopeful souls, filled with dreams of the future. We quickly fell in love, and from that moment, we became inseparable. We were each other's first serious relationship, each other's first real love, and for a long time, we believed we'd be each other's only. It was a love I thought would last a lifetime. I always felt our connection was rare, something special, but now I realize that maybe it was only special to me. Things began to change some time ago, after my wife started working at a new company. It was her first big job change in years, and it wasn't easy for her at the beginning. She had always been a bit reserved, slow to warm up to new people and places. She's never been the type to dive headfirst into a new social circle. I watched her struggle, trying to fit in with her new colleagues, and I did my best to support her through it. I encouraged her to step out of her comfort zone, to make new friends, and to embrace this new chapter in her career. I wanted her to feel fulfilled and confident in herself. Eventually, she did just that. She found a group of friends among her coworkers, a lively bunch, very different from us. Most of them were single, divorced, or dating casually. They were all about living in the moment, enjoying their freedom, and chasing new experiences. I didn't think much of it at first. If anything, I was genuinely happy for her. I wanted her to enjoy herself, to feel like she belonged. I believed that, no matter what, our bond was strong enough to handle the changes. But as time went on, I began to see a different side of her, a side I hadn't seen before. She started going out more often, meeting her friends for drinks and staying out late at bars and parties. This behavior was so unlike her before. She had always preferred quiet nights at home with me, just the two of us. Now, she seemed drawn to the nightlife, staying out until the early hours, coming home tired and distant. I tried to keep my feelings to myself because I didn't want to be seen as controlling or jealous. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing her. When I finally worked up the courage to talk to her about it, I tried to be gentle. I expressed my concerns, told her that I missed spending time with her, that I felt like we were growing apart. But every time, she brushed it off, saying that she just wanted to enjoy herself, that she needed a break from the routine. She would assure me that I had nothing to worry about, that she loved me just the same. I tried to believe her, but the uneasy feeling lingered. Her nights out became more frequent, and with them came changes at home. She often came back too exhausted to spend time with me, and our once thriving connection in the bedroom began to fade away. I felt our intimacy slipping, replaced by an emotional distance that grew wider with each passing week. I kept hoping it was just a phase, that maybe she just needed a little space. But as the months went by, I started to realize that whatever was happening went deeper than I wanted to admit. Then, a new manager joined her company. She mentioned him casually at first, talking about how he brought new energy to the office. She described him as charismatic, someone who knew how to motivate the team. I thought nothing of it at the time after all. It seemed like typical work talk. But then she started bringing him up more frequently, dropping his name into conversations, even when it didn't seem relevant. She spoke about his leadership style, his sense of humor, the way he handled things. It was more than just admiration. There was a fascination in her tone that made me uneasy. One evening, as she mentioned him yet again, I finally asked her if there was something going on. I tried to make it sound light, as if I was only half serious, but inside, my heart was pounding. She laughed and dismissed it, saying that I was being ridiculous, that he was just her boss. But I could see a flicker of something in her eyes, restlessness, maybe even guilt. I wanted to believe her, but a small part of me couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't being completely honest. Around the same time, she started asking me strange questions, questions that made me feel uncomfortable. One night, out of nowhere, she asked if I ever regretted not having more experiences with other women before we got married. I was taken aback. No, I told her. I've never needed anything beyond what we have. You've always been enough for me. For a moment, I thought I saw sadness in her eyes, like she was holding back something she couldn't bring herself to say. But she quickly changed the subject, and I didn't press her on it. A few weeks later, she brought up the idea of having an open marriage. She framed it as a way for us to spice things up, to explore experiences we had missed out on in our younger years. She said it might even bring us closer in the end, that it could help us appreciate what we have. I was stunned. My wife had never been the type to entertain such thoughts. The suggestion seemed to come out of nowhere. I couldn't help but wonder if it had anything to do with her new manager, but when I asked, she denied it, insisting that this was about her own curiosity and desire for growth. She told me that she didn't want to feel like she had missed out on life, but she also didn't want to lose me. I should have trusted my instincts and said no. I should have told her that it made me uncomfortable, that I wasn't okay with the idea. But I didn't. I was scared of looking insecure. Scared that rejecting her would only push her away further. So, with a heavy heart, I agreed. I convinced myself that maybe this could be a way to strengthen our relationship, that she would explore whatever she needed to and come back to me. For the next year, my wife went on dates and had one-night stands. She even started an affair with that manager, the one I had asked her about. Meanwhile, I struggled to open up to other women. I went on a few dates, but each time, it felt wrong, like I was betraying a part of myself. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. My wife would ask me if I was okay, but her concern felt empty, like she was only asking to make herself feel better, not because she truly cared about how I felt. I could feel my love for her slipping away, and it hurt more than I could put into words. Then, unexpectedly, I met someone who made me feel alive again. She was new to the city, having moved here from South Korea. There was a warmth and kindness about her that immediately drew me in. We started going out, just as friends at first, but slowly, something deeper began to grow between us. With her, I felt seen and appreciated in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. She made me feel wanted, like I was more than just an afterthought. When my wife found out about this new relationship, she was surprised at first, even amused. She seemed to think it was just a fling. But as my connection with this new woman deepened, her attitude changed. She became more interested, asking questions about her and what we did together. She seemed worried in a way I hadn't seen in months. I reminded her that she was still seeing the very man I had been worried about. She didn't have much to say after that, but I could see the conflict in her eyes. After that, my wife's behavior shifted dramatically. She began coming home earlier, making dinner, and trying to do little things for me, things she hadn't done in ages. She even started visiting me at work with packed lunches, just like she used to when we were first married. For the first time in months, she tried to initiate intimacy, hoping to rekindle what we had lost. But by then, it was too late. The spark between us had died. I found myself going through the motions, but my heart wasn't in it anymore. One evening, I finally asked her why she had changed so suddenly. She hesitated, then told me that she realized how much she missed our old life together. She said she wanted to prove that she still loved me and that she was committed to making things work. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. What about all those nights out? Your manager? The friends you used to go out with? I asked her. She turned away, her eyes filling with tears, but she had no answers. That night, she cried herself to sleep, but I felt no desire to comfort her. For the first time, I realized that maybe, just maybe, I was starting to move on. The next day, she sat me down and said she wanted to close our marriage. She admitted that the entire experience had been a huge mistake. Her face was pale, and there were dark circles under her eyes. It was clear she hadn't slept well. As I looked at her, I felt a mix of emotions, a sense of relief that she was finally being honest, but also a cold dread creeping in, as if I were about to step into an abyss. She confessed that her so-called adventure left her feeling empty and lost. The thrill she had once sought felt like a mirage, fading into a stark reality. I realized too late that what we had was special, she said, her voice trembling. No amount of excitement or new experiences can replace the love and connection we built over the years. Her words were heavy, but her eyes were filled with a fear I hadn't seen before, fear that she had damaged our relationship beyond repair. I listened in silence, a cold, hollow ache settling in my chest. You say that now, but how can I trust that you won't change your mind again? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Her response was immediate. She broke down in front of me, sobbing uncontrollably. She clung to me as if I were the only thing keeping her from drowning in her own regrets. In that moment, I held her not out of love, but from a strange sense of obligation, as if I was duty-bound to comfort her despite my own heartache. In our therapy sessions, she continued to pour her heart out, sharing how her friends had pushed her into this lifestyle. They had convinced her that she was missing out on something extraordinary by being with just one person. I felt guilty from the start, she admitted, wiping her tears away with trembling hands. But I justified it to myself. I told myself it was just an adventure and that you would eventually understand. But the excitement she thought she would find quickly faded, replaced by a deep, gnawing regret that clawed at her insides. It was a feeling I could understand all too well. As our therapy sessions progressed, she revealed that her connection with the new manager had become more than just a thrilling distraction. It had morphed into an emotional affair long before we opened our marriage. She recounted how they would sit in his office, talking about everything and nothing, sharing their frustrations, dreams, and desires. Then, she confessed something she had tried to hide from me, how they had touched themselves in front of each other, even though they hadn't crossed the line into physical intimacy until the marriage was officially open. I didn't think it was real cheating because we hadn't gone that far yet, she said, looking away in shame. But as she spoke, I could see the shame in her eyes, and it twisted my heart. Hearing this made my world feel like it was falling apart. I had thought I was prepared for anything, but this admission hit me like a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me. She continued to SOB, apologizing over and over, but I couldn't find the words to comfort her. The therapist sat there, looking as shocked as I felt, trying to steer us toward a place of understanding, but it felt like the damage was too deep to repair. In a moment of vulnerability, I asked her when it was that she had stopped loving me. Through her tears, she insisted that she had never stopped loving me. I was chasing an illusion, she said, her voice cracking. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you until it was too late. I struggled to understand how she could claim to love me while engaging in actions that shattered my heart and our trust. As we continued therapy, she described the moment when everything came crashing down for her. One evening, she overheard the manager talking to a colleague about their fling. He spoke of her as if she were just a conquest, a temporary distraction, and nothing more. He mentioned that he never intended to leave his fiancée for me, she said, her voice barely a whisper. And he called you just a nice guy who didn't know better. Hearing those words felt like a knife twisting in my gut. It was a harsh reminder that I had been fighting for someone who hadn't valued our love the way I did. That realization shattered her, she said. She left work in a daze and threw up in the parking lot, unable to reconcile what she had done with who she thought she was. It was a moment of clarity, a painful awakening that forced her to confront the truth. She had made a terrible mistake, and she desperately wanted to come back to me. But by that time, I had already found someone else. The truth is, my new partner made me feel valued in ways I hadn't felt in years. She didn't see me as a fallback or a safety net. She saw me as someone worth loving just as I was. I realized I had spent too many years being my wife's rock, her anchor, while she sought excitement and adventure elsewhere. Now, for the first time, I felt free to find my own happiness without constantly sacrificing my needs for hers. As I reflected on my life, I found myself standing at a crossroads. My wife's tears and apologies felt genuine, but I struggled with whether I could ever forgive her or if I even wanted to try. I wanted to believe that people could change, that we could rebuild what had been broken. Yet, every time I looked at her, I was reminded of the man she chose over me. I thought of the nights she spent with him while I lay awake, wondering where she was and what she was doing. The woman I had met recently offered me a new beginning, a chance to love and be loved without the weight of betrayal hanging over us. She didn't ask me to be someone I wasn't. She didn't make me feel inadequate or boring. With her, I saw a future filled with hope and possibility. On the other hand, my wife was begging for another chance. She insisted she was willing to do anything, even if it meant living with the knowledge that she broke my heart beyond repair. She wanted to believe that we could be happy again, that our love could withstand even this storm. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was just scared, afraid of facing the consequences of her actions, of being alone, and of realizing that she ruined everything for a fleeting thrill. Each day brought new questions. Should I try to rebuild what we had? Could I forgive her and see if time could heal these wounds? Or should I choose to walk away and embrace the new life waiting for me, free from the ghosts of our past? The future felt uncertain, and I was terrified of making the wrong choice. But whatever decision I made, I knew I deserved to be with someone who truly valued me. I wanted to be with someone who saw me not as a backup plan, but as a partner, an equal. For the first time in a long time, I was starting to believe that I might actually deserve that happiness. As days turned into weeks, I found myself reflecting on our memories, the laughter, the shared dreams, and even the moments of struggle that had once brought us closer together. I remembered the early days of our relationship, when everything felt effortless and full of promise. Those memories felt distant now, overshadowed by betrayal and heartache. In therapy, my wife kept expressing her regret and longing for forgiveness. Each time she spoke, I could see the pain etched on her face, and it tugged at my heart. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that we could heal and rebuild. But trust is a fragile thing, and ours felt shattered. One day, she brought up the idea of couples counseling again. "I know I've hurt you," she said, her voice earnest, "but I'm willing to do the work to prove that I can change. I want to show you that I can be the partner you deserve." It was a bold statement, and I admired her determination. Yet, doubts lingered in my mind. Would I ever be able to look at her and not see the betrayal? I thought about my new partner, how she made me feel alive again. With her, I felt appreciated and respected, and I couldn't ignore the spark that ignited within me when I was around her. The contrast between the two relationships was stark, one filled with pain and betrayal, the other with hope and renewal. One evening, as I lay in bed, I thought about the two paths ahead of me. Should I stick with the familiar, the pain, and the heartache? Or should I take a leap of faith and embrace the possibility of new love? I closed my eyes and tried to envision my life in each scenario. With my wife, I saw endless therapy sessions, rebuilding trust, and revisiting old wounds. With my new partner, I saw laughter, joy, and a future filled with possibilities. In that moment of reflection, I realized that I wanted to choose joy over pain. I wanted to choose a life that made me feel valued and appreciated. The decision crystallized within me. I had to move forward. I would have a conversation with my wife, one where I would be honest about my feelings and intentions. When we finally talked, I could see the hope in her eyes, but I knew that I had to be straightforward. I appreciate your desire to work on things, but I can't go back to the way things were, I said gently. I've found someone who makes me feel happy, and I can't deny that anymore. Her expression shifted, and I saw the hurt reflected in her eyes. I understand, she said softly, tears streaming down her cheeks. I just wish it didn't have to end this way. I felt a wave of sadness wash over me, knowing that this decision would hurt her deeply. But I also felt a sense of relief, a weight lifting from my shoulders. I had made a choice for myself, one that would lead to healing and a future filled with hope. As we spoke, I realized that this was not just an ending, it was also a new beginning. We shared memories, laughter, and tears, honoring the love we once had. We spoke of moving forward as friends, acknowledging that while the love had changed, the bond we formed through shared experiences would always be a part of us. And as we parted ways that evening, I felt a sense of closure. I stepped into the future with a renewed spirit, ready to embrace the love that awaited me.